Hi, Mike.
Hey, Julian.
Hey, I've got a question for you, Mike. Which is the odd one out? Okay.
Go on.
Yeah. So is it working in Thailand,
Uh-huh.
being a competitive swimmer,
Uh-huh.
doing a CERT AVP, or euthanizing a cow in India?
I think swimming.
No, it's euthanizing a cow in India.
What?
Yeah. So look, we'll get Chris Wilson on. He'll explain it.
Okay, let's get Chris Wilson in.
Great.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Ho.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
Good evening, Chris.
Chris, hello there.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Yourself?
Lovely to meet you.
Have you got a drink? Most importantly.
I do actually.
Do you? Oh, is that
now,
gin and
what do you
tonic?
got there? Is that a gin?
A gin and tonic.
Ah, good lad.
Now, I hear that you, at one point, were not necessarily going to become a vet.
No.
You were actually a swimmer.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting you say I wasn't going to become a vet, because I think when I reflect on it, like, I always see my path having led to here.
Okay.
It's just, I kind of got thrown a curveball just when I was applying for university. I was competing for my age, I was competing at a reasonably high level, swimming. And I'd just been through my Edinburgh interview, which, I mean, I studied at Glasgow, so I can say bad things about Edinburgh. The classic rivalry between them. But the Edinburgh interview, which I found slightly unwelcoming, to be honest. Okay. Maybe that was all on me, but that's how I found it. And I'd just been through that, and it was almost a little bit demoralizing. I was obviously, you do all your work experience and everything when you're a student, obviously work so hard at your exams. I'd just been through that, and then literally out the blue, I got this great brown envelope from University of Bath, which is one of the best universities for swimming. Just out the blue, came through the letterbox, offering me a place on a course. I was just like, to go from making people want me in interviews to suddenly being wanted was, it really kind of nearly knocked me off my course. And I mean, part of me would have loved to have done it. I loved competing, and I mean, if I would have made it to any success, I don't know. I don't know if I would have stuck it out that long and things. It's tough, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, and then I mean, the week later I had the Glasgow interview, and obviously that one was really, really lovely, really welcoming, super nice. Wanted to go straight there, of course, and got my place there. So it was just, it did nearly knock me off my course. But I think ultimately, even if I had maybe taken that detour, hopefully we would have probably still ended up back on this track.
Right. So being brutally diagnostic, do you think you'd have made it onto the British swimming program?
I don't know. There was a few of my big rivals, because I was a breaststroke. That was my stroke. And
Adam Peaty springs to mind.
Yeah. So he was like a few years lower down from me.
What stroke was Duncan Goodhue? Was he butterfly and front crawl, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah. He definitely wasn't a breaststroker. But one of my big rivals was someone called Michael Jameson, and he won silver at the Olympics, and he went to Bath Uni. So like, obviously I cannot say I would have ended up like that, you know, but and that's like X number of swimmers who went there, and you get those success stories and things. But it does, I don't know, I remember watching him getting that medal, and I had no kind of like regrets or remorse or anything. I was just delighted for him, you know. But it's funny how your kind of your path in life can change.
So was there just that little bit of that could have been me? Yeah, come on.
If anything, I think it was more bragging. It was like, I used to race against him. I think it was more like I used to race against the guy.
So who used to win?
I mean, usually him. To be fair, he was a year older. I'm going to use that as my excuse. But it is funny that though, I find so.
Cheated by virtue of his age.
Yeah,
we hear that so much. And do you still swim, or have you given it up in a fit of pique?
I don't. I think the thing with me, and this may be a reflection on my work ethic, who knows, but the training I wasn't as fond of as the actual competing. The racing, there was like nothing like it. I loved that, and I mean, even now, now that I've kind of got sort of quite a good work-life balance, I am potentially looking into masters clubs and things like that again, because it gives you an opportunity to compete, I think. So yeah, hopefully, I hope I'll get back into it soon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I spent a little while working with the British team before London.
Oh, really?
And the work ethic and the amount of work they were putting in. They'd already been 2-3 hours in the pool on a day when I would rock up in the evening, and they'd be there for another 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, and it was just constant. Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
Well, do you remember Sarah Cotton, who we had on a few weeks? One of my friends who is a channel swimmer,
right? Yeah,
and she trained for 18 months to do a there and backer, and she would swim for 4 or 5 hours every day in the sea.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, sea swimming's totally different. It's so tough. It's so much more tiring. But when I was studying for my exams before vet school, generally most days I was about 4 hours in the pool, like before school and then after school. It's just, and it's intense, I think I think when I sort of went to uni, I was like, oh, this is actually more relaxed. This is nice.
And I don't smell of chlorine anymore.
Yeah, well, I did keep on swimming at uni, so I did smell of chlorine for another 5 years.
And you can hold a pencil again.
Brilliant stuff. So, all right. So you were doing all this training and all this swimming. So when did you want to become a vet? When did you know that this was going to be your path?
Oh, so that's what I think. Like, I was probably when I was a kid.
Right.
I remember I actually wanted to be a zookeeper for a while, actually. But I come from a really medical family, so
right.
Even when I was really young, I mean, our dinner table conversations weren't pleasant. My dad would come home. My mum was a retired midwife. My sister trained as a physio. Like it was very medical, our conversations. I'd be asking my dad about all sorts of diseases that I'd been reading about and stuff like that, and so I mean, from a very young age, I had that kind of medical persuasion, and obviously just was convinced I needed to work with animals on some level. Hence why veterinary obviously was very, very logical for me. And so I mean, I can't even remember when I started wanting to be a vet, but that's probably how young it was. It was kind of before I can really properly remember that.
So it was everything then channeled through that you were going to be a vet and this is what you were going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, we mentioned imposter syndrome when we were chatting earlier, and when I went to uni, initially I had that to quite a degree, because I wouldn't describe myself as a city kid, but I was suddenly with a lot of kids from sort of farming families or horse backgrounds and things like that, and that element I felt a little bit alien to. And I did do my bit of work experience before uni and things, obviously, but so for some people, they've just been so ingrained in it their whole lives. Whereas, I mean, my kind of growing up experience was having a couple of rabbits and goldfish and a dog, and I was collecting bugs in the garden. It felt like I was a little bit out of place, but yeah, I mean, I guess kind of sort of through those years at school, I mean, obviously sort of channeled it into wanting to be a vet and doing all the relevant stuff to get into vet school.
You mentioned imposter syndrome. I mean, you're not the first person to bring that up, and I guess
probably won't be the last either.
No, I have imposter syndrome, I think, every day of my life, in every sphere of my life as well. Going to a supermarket and think I shouldn't be buying this. Right, what am I going to do? Honestly, bread making flour. I can't really make bread. I'm an imposter. Tell us about the imposter syndrome. When did you start to get that? I mean, because let's face it, as soon as you qualify, you're an imposter, because our day one qualifications, our day one knowledge is not quite there, is it?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm doing the like the graduate coaching scheme for new grads at the moment, you know, and
All right.
it comes up a lot.
Mhm.
A lot of these like amazingly capable adults who feel like they've just suddenly been launched into this career that they don't belong in, and I mean it's obviously very sad, but I guess it's a slight enlightening sense knowing that everyone gets it to a degree as well, you know. But yeah, I mean, like I said, maybe developed a little bit when I first went to uni. You kind of go from sort of, certainly in my scenario, it was a little bit from in terms of my academic capabilities, was big fish, small pond, into suddenly the tiniest of fish and like a huge pond, you know. And so a little bit then, but obviously you realize over the years at uni, you make good friends, you realize that everyone at varying levels in different areas. And then, yeah, as a new grad, I guess, I went into initially into mixed practice, so lots of farm work and equine work and small animal stuff as well. I mean, equine was almost like an entirely different world to me as well.
You know, me too.
I think equine is a different world.
Yeah,
it is. Did you have? So I did mixed practice as well for the first 3 years, and although I love horses, even the ones that kick me in the head, I was never accepted into the horse world because they could tell that I was an imposter. It wasn't me having imposter syndrome. It was, you haven't grown up around horses, have you? Well, no, but actually I know that that's medial malleolitis. Yeah, you haven't, fucker, that's curb, that is, you don't know anything. Well, that's it, that's what I said. No, you didn't. You said this thing ending in itis, that's curb. For heaven's sake, you know nothing.
that is an incredibly familiar story to me. It's like I knew what I was doing, and I liked working with horses, and I thought I was actually, for my level of experience, I was actually fairly competent with it in hindsight. But you'd go out to a yard, and yeah, I mean, people would they'd all start listening in, clustering in. Like this person would give their opinion, this person would give their opinion. A bit bitchy as well sometimes, I found. But yeah, the number of horses that some other horse owner would quite happily volunteer a diagnosis of the horse having a sore back because the owner was overweight. Obviously, dealing with that sometimes takes some tact as well. So, but yeah, so I guess kind of it was going into that world as a new grad where you're already feeling so underprepared for the world. Incidentally, for me, I mean, at the time, I was starting to deal with my sexuality as well. I was quite sort of late to start kind of understanding it, you know. And yeah, I mean, the farming world, I loved it, but it is a very kind of sort of heterosexual, masculine world. I remember, I mean, there's one thing that I specifically remember at one point where the farmers were sometimes quite particular who went out to their farms. And I mean, I was a local lad, because I was from Aberdeen. So I seemed to be fairly popular with them in terms of new graduates, you know. And I remember a farmer calling up and saying to one of the receptionists, "Don't send one of those women vets to the receptionist." Absolutely appalling, you know. But it was sometimes what they were like. And I just remember thinking at that time, there's this kind of sinking feeling in my chest. It's like, oh my God, they're going to call up one day and be like, "Don't send that gay vet." And that line of "don't send that woman vet" sticks with me, because I was like, if these female vets that I'm working with who are far more capable than me, if they can be reduced just to that based on the request to help their animals, you know, like what are they going to do if they know I'm gay? And I was just, I thought in that moment, I was like, I can't let them know, you know. So I was still figuring it out, you know, and I wasn't out to friends and family really at that stage either. But I was like, I can't be out at work. I wouldn't cope with that. I don't think that would be a wise decision, you know. And it's such a shame that I felt that, you know.
That is a shame, really, because there's that whole level of stigma that's being applied onto you, and if you're not fully comfortable with where you are, then that's sort of a very, very clear indication of imposter, isn't it? Because
yeah, I mean, I guess that's. I mean, I guess in this sense, I mean, the twist here in it is that it was me applying that stigma, that it was me expecting that response. I never actually got that response from them. I mean,
or at least reflecting it, weren't you? There's an assumed reflection of that.
Exactly.
Stigma.
I mean, for all I know, I mean, I doubt it, but for all I know, if I had been out in that job, I might have turned up to the farm. They would have been waving rainbow flags, throwing glitter, and praising that I'd arrived. You know, like. But yeah, it was an odd time for me, I guess, because here's me doing what I loved, yet feeling not just from my experience, but also who I was, that I didn't quite belong in that world. And I mean, obviously, I mentioned what they said about female vets, and it's like, well, what do they go through? I mean, people of color. Again, like, are they welcomed into these worlds? You know, and I think kind of sort of particularly the farming community, I loved them. It was great. But when you've got a community who's maybe got slightly more traditional views, you do worry about how it's going to be received.
I think you do. And I think in the farming community, there's probably, because of the commercial aspect to it, you're not just dealing with someone's beloved pet. Obviously, they love their animals as well, but there is pure money, and so there's almost a need to go in and sort things out immediately. There's less of the touchy-feely, well, let's try this, let's try that. And so you've got to be capable from the first visit, haven't you? And I know for a different perspective, when I did my farm vetting, most farm vets are 6'3" in my experience. I know they're not, but my boss was, and there's me 5'5" going along, new grad. The good thing was that I was a mature student, and so they think, well, he's an older person, but he's still bloody short. And it didn't help when my boss gave me a milk crate to stand on. He said, you'll need this because you're doing a load of PDs. He said, I told the farmer that you're short. Very caring boss. Told the farmer you're short, and so he understands. So I turned up with my milk crate, and it was a herd of Dexters, which are miniature breed. So the farmer and I shared a good old laugh at that one. Not.
You're perfect height for it. No bad back.
But again, I felt the need to overprove myself to try and be super capable of that.
Yeah.
And so for you, yes, I can see how difficult it would have been to.
But I mean, I was white, local male. To all intents and purposes, I was straight to them as well. So, and I saw the female vets I was working with having to prove themselves much more than I was. But yeah, it did leave me with this thing of, I can't say anything. I can't not right now, not this point in my life. And I had the most wonderful team. Like the people I was working with were all fantastic, and they would have no doubt been incredibly supportive if I had been ready to do that.
So what made you ready?
Yeah.
And then what did you do?
Oh wow. I think just learning who I was, and that just happens with time. And I think over the years after that, I kind of sort of realized, well, actually, do I want to kind of be hiding who I am? No. And by that point, yeah, very happy and so well supported. Friends were all amazing. And things like that. Family too. Yeah, so good.
Did you get the reaction that you expected
from sort of friends and family?
Yeah.
I guess like it's difficult because you internalize the whole thing so much. Like when you do actually come out, I mean, it's so hard to explain, and everyone has such a different experience, of course. But I guess for me, everything I created was in my head. But like I said, I was very fortunate. I'm not from some kind of diehard religious family and things. So I wasn't in a world that's gonna negatively respond to it. Right. Obviously, and so many people are. But yeah, no, I think I created almost like a demon out of it, in the sense that you think people are going to be awful about it, but then when you think about it, none of them are, because these are your people that you surround yourself with, like your dear friends, your dear family and things, and they love you. So I don't know. It obviously does take courage even then, but and it took me a lot of time to kind of sort of get to that stage to be comfortable to do it as well.
And you still have to take that step, don't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the mad thing, isn't it? I mean, I guess kind of it'd be nice to be in a place where people don't need to feel they need to make that step. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't say to someone, "So, well, you heterosexual, are you?" Or,
no, of course not. Like it sounds bizarre when you say it, but like at the same time, it was like, and it's funny because even now sometimes consulting small animal vet London, which is the gayest place in the UK, I still feel I sometimes need to come out to people.
Okay.
Like you'll have a client and they'll make some comment or they'll say something. I was like, oh, like how's your girlfriend or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, boyfriend. And you still like. I mean, obviously, I now say it from generally like a place of pride. That I can say that, but it is a slightly ingrained thing, and I mean. Obviously, I think you guys have spoken about microaggressions before at work, and obviously, so many of these things are well-intentioned. No one means harm in some of them, but you get some of these microaggressions that even now, like sort of when I'm in a very comfortable place with my sexuality, but you've got like you hand out a pink buster collar to a male dog, and the client said, "Oh, have you got a different color? I don't want the other dogs thinking he's, And you're like, I want to laugh because it's so silly. But at the same time, like, there's a little bit of me is a bit like, oh, like, didn't realize that was an issue.
That's right. FFS.
Yeah. Or they'll be like, oh yeah, my dog, he's been humping the other boy dogs at work in the park. I think he's a bit, and you're just like, oof, like, I'm a bit, it's like, it's when they can apply these insecurities about that to their pets,
And you say they're not ill-intentioned, and I guess these people would be mortified if they thought they were creating any ill will, any horror, any shock, any offence. But it is intention because there's that cultural ingrained homophobia, as there is racism, as there is sexism. And we could either hope that actually over the next couple of generations that's going to get better, or we could try and actually make a difference with every conversation we have, couldn't we? And that's a tiring thing to do, isn't it? But
well, that's the thing. I mean, when you're run off your feet, you're trying to do all these consults at once and everything, and like to experience that microaggression, be it like sort of slightly ill meant, because sometimes I do think there is like a bit more kind of blatant homophobia there, or whether it's completely, well, it's never completely innocent, but or whether it's sort of well-intentioned humor, correcting someone, it takes a bit of you each time to do it,
I suppose a lot depends on where you are that day at that time, isn't it? In yourself, and sometimes you're just going to go, whatever.
Yeah.
But other times you're going to be in a vulnerable position, and just that one little comment is going to just cut right through. And it's like I suppose in many respects it's a little bit like the complaint, or the one bad thing that happens. And suddenly as humans, we forget all of the 100 positives that we've dealt with that day.
Yes.
And we focus on that one negative.
Yeah. That someone has judged you wrongly. You believe wrongly, and therefore that is your sentence.
Yeah.
One of the bravest things I think I ever saw among my clients, I always said my clientele, a different thing, isn't it, really? My client. I was working in Wimbledon, and there was a client, young chap that I'd seen his pet for several times, and we were chatting as you would do at the end of a consult, having cured his dog of whatever minor ailment I had. And he asked me out. He said, are you free next Friday? And I said, it's Friday, next Friday, I'm not going out with some mates. He said, well, I was just kind of seeing if you want to go out with me. And this look of surprise came in my eyes. And he said, oh God, no, I'm sorry, I've misread it. I said, no, you haven't misread it at all. I'm not actually gay. But yeah, thank you so much for asking me. No, I'm afraid is the answer. But actually, well done, and thanks for asking me. I'm very, very flattered. But it struck me that later on, what a brave thing to have done.
Yeah.
And in his situation, I don't know if I would have been so brave.
Yeah, I mean, that's hats off to him.
Yeah.
And then it struck me that one of the only times it's ever really mattered to me whether someone's gay or not is if it's someone I'm trying to ask out.
Yeah.
but actually, it doesn't matter then either, does it? Because they're either going to say yes or no.
So it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah. Is it confession time? A couple of my first girlfriends have turned out to be gay.
Well, probably because of you, actually, there, Mike, isn't it?
Probably.
well, incidentally, my childhood girlfriend turned out to be gay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
all good stuff.
Yeah.
All good stuff. I want to pick up on, Chris, something you were saying earlier, because you were talking about mentoring students,
mm-hmm.
and then we talked about imposter syndrome, and we moved the topic through there. So, have you got any particular coping strategies? Because it strikes me that you've got yourself, but if you're operating as a mentor as well, then are there any particular coping strategies that you would share with us?
I think, I don't know, I like to encourage them to do like sort of positive reflections. So whenever we have our meetings and things, I can almost like set them homework in advance. And sometimes we kind of maybe we'll twist it to a theme, like sort of some sort of situation that you've dealt with a client where there's been a communication issue that you have overcome, but it's still a victory ultimately, And it's like you mentioned earlier, you can do 1,000 good things in a day, and there's just that one thing that cuts you and it reduces you to a mess.
Yeah.
And so kind of, I guess, I mean, I've got no formal training in this, I guess, but to me, it's about kind of going home and looking at least one positive of what you have done, And I mean,
but when you say look at it, how do you mean look at it? Sorry,
I think just kind of almost like applaud yourself on it,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was actually, in reflection, that was a really challenging situation, or that could have ended really badly had I not done this. And I think when you start looking at it, even in most situations, so even when things go wrong, there's still some positive reflection you can get from those situations. Probably not at the time. You maybe don't want to dwell on it when something's happening.
It may take years.
Yeah, but if you can kind of like sort of be able to take some positive from it, and even maybe if that's a learning experience, now, next time I do this, I'll do it slightly differently and things. So, I kind of like to sort of set them out. Because I think in terms of imposter syndrome, if you're giving yourself constant validation, I think you start realizing that you do belong, and it's difficult to wait to get that validation from other people. And if you've got good mentors, if you've got good management, of course you do get some of that validation from them, and certainly you'll get it from clients as well. But as you said, it's the ones that you don't get it from that reduce everything that you have received validation wise to nothing.
So in effect, giving yourself a bit of a pat on the back, a bit of positive reflection.
Yeah, I mean,
does gratitude come in there?
Gratitude. Yeah, definitely. I was quite good for doing my gratitudes for a while, but I haven't been as good recently. But me and my boyfriend went through a phase where we would text each other each night a list of things we were grateful for that day. And it's amazing because even when you've had literally the worst day, you can be like, oh, the bus driver like was really nice when I got on the bus, or something really little, or you got like there was like a meal deal that you managed to get or something like, and I think gratitudes like that are really good as well, because I mean, it was quite nice doing them before bed, because it was very much like, I'm going to bed on this clean mind.
On a positive.
Exactly, yeah. When there's plenty of other things I could have probably been dwelling on. Yeah.
I'm going to, when we first started off on this Veterinary Ramblings, I used to annoy Mike by telling a joke each episode, and I'm going to annoy him now because there's a joke that just fits in with this perfectly. But actually, yes, it's an analogy for modern life, and it's a joke about this guy who gets the same train every morning, and he always sits opposite this other chap who's very smartly dressed, nice tailored suit, and he gets the same train going to work and the same train coming back, and this guy sort of hobbles onto the train and sits down, does that a little bit, and on the way back he says, oh God, we're glad to get these shoes off it. Oh, they're so uncomfortable. Every day for 5 years he says that. There's this chap in the end says, look, so I've got to ask. He says, you're not short of a penny or two. You've clearly got a good job, and it's enough to buy you a nice suit. Why do you wear uncomfortable shoes? I mean, surely you can just buy a pair of shoes that fit. He said, look, I've got 3 whining kids at home. My wife nags me all the time. I have got a good job, but it's a really high pressure job, and the boss is on me from the moment I get into work, from the moment I leave to the moment I leave, and I've got to hit targets left, right, and centre. The only relief I get each day is taking these fucking shoes off. That's gratitude.
Yeah. Do you see why we dropped the joke section?
Self-flagellation there, I think. But
yeah, just to see why we dropped the jokes.
I think that's a shortened version of one of the Ronnie Corbett ones of years back.
Quite possibly.
Without swear, yeah. But gratitudes are a good thing. And you've done a lot of things, I think, to be grateful for in your life, and a lot of things that other people should be grateful for you, not least of which being a vet. But you've done some amazing things in India, haven't you?
Yeah, so this was after obviously my first job up in Scotland, where I worked there for 2 years, and I'd been itching to travel for a while. And a vet who I'd worked with when I was a student had sort of contacts in India, because he had worked out there for a while at a charity. And I kind of always wanted to go there. I didn't know too much about the country, but I was like, I want to go there because it's vast, And so, yeah. No,
and they've got more Indian restaurants than Glasgow, haven't they?
Yeah, probably a few more, I reckon.
1 or 2.
Close, yeah. So yeah, no, made the decision to go over there and worked with a charity in Jaipur called Help in Suffering. It's a very dramatic name, Help in Suffering. But very much that works for them as a charity over there. They like to kind of emphasize these things. And the most amazing thing about this charity, because I worked in Thailand later at another charity. The most amazing thing about this one was it was very much run by the community. And I then moved on later on to Thailand, and I worked at a charity there, which was very much run by Westerners for kind of Westerner approval. And I mean, they'd spend thousands relocating a dog to Norway. I don't know. I enjoyed my time there as well, but certainly this Indian charity, I mean, the whole community was involved, and it just, I think it was so affirming kind of as a vet to do that, in the sense that we get lost in this kind of slight financial side and corporate sides. I mean, well, maybe we don't, but higher powers sometimes dictate these things. And to just kind of sort of stop seeing the cost of everything, but like the value of things. was just so important. And
that's a nice way of putting it.
yeah, I just coined that right now. But it was just the way the community was involved. And I mean, Jaipur is a massive city. I don't even know the population, but I imagine it rivals London. Probably, or maybe someone fact check this. It's got.
I'm going to take a lot. I'll say that.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, really big city basically, and there's. Have you heard of the kite festival?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know the kite runner. That kind of.
Hussaini, wasn't it? Hussein.
Yeah, I think it's set in a different country. But the kite festival they celebrate in a few countries.
Yeah. I think it was set in Iran, wasn't it?
I think it was more Middle Eastern than India.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there during that, and they celebrate it in Jaipur. And for people who don't know, they fly kites, but you aim to. It's like a game. You try and cut down other people's kites. So the threads of the kite they're lined with like ground glass, so they're sharp. And the aim is to wrap your kite string around another kite and then knock it down, and then you kind of win. Obviously, that causes a massive issue for the local population of pigeons who are flying around into sharp strings. So during this festival, you've got hundreds, if not potentially thousands, of pigeons falling to the ground with sometimes quite severe injuries to their wings. It really made me reflect. I mean, Aberdeen has a lot of pigeons and a lot of seagulls, and we'd occasionally get them brought into the vets. You'd get some random person bringing them in, and quite often, yes, it was that situation of humane decision for the pigeon, blah blah blah. But in India, you'd have someone who's on their way to work, on their scooter, on their way to work, find a pigeon that had been hit by a kite, pick it up, drive an hour across town to this charity with this injured pigeon to take it to us, and then go back to work. And there's teams of dedicated people on mopeds who just drive around the city all day on this kite festival, collecting these injured pigeons.
Wow.
And I mean, by the end of the day, we had collected over 200 pigeons into this one charity centre. And I mean, not to put different values on different animals' lives, of course, but in the UK that would not happen.
It wouldn't.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we would say. But there's a life there that can suffer, and
and
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was just amazing to see people's attitude towards that. And yeah, it was just incredible community, and it was just such a stunning country as well. And their attitudes to animals were really, really, really great.
Yeah. I've got some pictures up of the kite festival. It's amazing, doesn't it?
I'm sure there's a real conflict going on here.
Oh, really? I mean, they love their festivals over there and things like that. But it is interesting because, I mean, before going over, I had a number of people say to me, "Oh, the animal welfare standards over there are not good. Their attitudes are bad to animals." And I mean, certainly they've still got some working elephants, which is obviously not ideal, though it's been phased out, and I think they're the last working elephants now. And yeah, it's interesting when you see, because we were working primarily with dogs, but we worked with cows quite a lot as well. Now in India, cows are obviously the holiest of creatures. And don't quote me on this. I think each one contains like 3 million gods, I think, or something like that. You know, and they're really revered, and people buy food and take them to cows, and they really lead great lives. But it's interesting because it does take a flip when you then have cows in not so good welfare situations.
Right.
So obviously, I mean, we're very used to euthanasia in our profession, and we know that sometimes other cultures and religions sometimes struggle with the idea, the concepts of it. And in India was particularly interesting when it came to cows. So basically, it's actually illegal to euthanize a cow in, well, at least in that state of Rajasthan. It was. And it's 7 years in prison for doing so. So
What?
it obviously then raises a really kind of interesting ethical dilemma.
Yeah. So how would that work out? You have a cow that has an unresolvable clinical problem. What do you do?
Well, I mean, I remember that there was one cow we got called out to because cows have the run of the place. They do what they want. It had been hit by a car, and the cow had at least 3 open fractured legs. I mean, it doesn't take someone who's not worked with cows before to know that there's literally no chance of coming back from that. But yeah, so I mean, it raises this ethical dilemma. I mean, I was working with Indians predominantly, and there's one fantastic I need to mention, Jack Rees. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's well known in kind of sort of charity and rabies circles and things like that. He's done a lot of research out there and things. And yeah, so you've got a cow that you need to consider euthanasia for, and it's a crime to do so. But you also just can't leave that cow suffering. Now, a lot of the Indians, the locals that we were working with, they knew the situation, and they're very kind of understanding, and they worked with you on it. But essentially what we had to do is, under cover of darkness, we'd get the cow in, give some pain relief, let the cow settle. Under cover of darkness, you'd sneak out, do the euthanasia, and then for example, where we had injected into the neck, we'd rub dirt on, and just so there was no sign had been done. We also used potassium chloride rather than pentobarbital because it's apparently, again, maybe don't quote me on this, but apparently undetectable after death. Whereas pentobarbital, you can detect.
The potassium will leak out of the vessels, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think you naturally get increased potassium.
Not that I've ever.
This has suddenly become a true crime podcast.
But Chris, I was just saying, Chris, that you're suggesting here an element of post-mortem and chemical analysis going on afterwards.
I don't think it's police to that level. Right. Now, is this a confession tape I'm doing? But obviously, I mean,
wasn't you weren't there.
Well, I was just maybe witness, shall we say. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously it's a big conflict as a vet when you know and you're used to euthanasia being a very reasonable treatment option for animals, to alleviate suffering. And you've got an animal that's suffering, and legally you can't actually do anything about it unless you break the law. Has to be.
So, is said animal then discovered and sadly passed away in the middle of the night?
Next morning, sadly passed away. There was a little smudge of dirt on its neck that no one bats an eyelid at. And like I said, a lot of the local community that we're working with, at least some of the more senior and experienced members, they were aware. They knew what we were doing. But
they turn a blind eye to it because of the welfare.
I think, I mean, there's that sense of rationality about it as well. Things, I mean, and obviously, I mean, I can't speak for the culture at all, but I mean, being privy to that, I mean, it's just kind of like a fascinating study of kind of what we have as vets, in our hands. But yeah.
I think some human doctors in our UK hospitals do the same.
And I can think of some right cows that need putting to sleep, to be honest.
There you go.
But that's a different story.
That's a whole different story. Well, that's fascinating. So what is the prognosis for a cut-up pigeon that's been brought all the way across the town on the back of a moped, having been shot down by a kite or a kite string with glass beads in the string?
I'd say they had a really good success rate, actually. They had a big aviary, and I mean, it had hundreds of pigeons in it. And at one point, we had a clear out where essentially we released as many as we could, and lots of them did really well. I mean, obviously it depends on the severity of the injuries, but there was a few pigeons that were they lost a wing, you know, but they were kind of kept at this charity.
Really?
Well, they had this big aviary, and they had these pigeons that were kind of safe within it, and I don't know, fairly content. So I mean, but it's interesting that kind of that contrast of kind of like obviously the sanctity of life of what culturally we deem as like a very run-of-the-mill animal, you know, a pigeon, versus kind of obviously at what point does life when you're suffering lose, you know? I don't know. It just,
you know, it's something that would go way beyond our 1 hour.
100%. I mean,
I've known clients who have become really very depressed after the loss of a hamster, and I was going to say, why not? You know, it's an odd thing to say, isn't it? Your pet can be your life, and whether that's, you know, a mammal, a reptile, an insect. I don't know if people get as attached to stick insects, but I'm sure along the way people have been.
One of my ex-girlfriends
I
did.
definitely buried my stick insects when I was a kid.
Well, there you go. Good answer, Chris.
Whether I was as emotionally cut up as when we lost my first dog, that's maybe slightly different, you know. But
yeah, we're not to judge, are we? People will love their pets in varying ways, and apparently not love them sometimes.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, interesting. Wow, India, elephants, and so they do still have elephants in some states of India working the wood yards, don't they?
I'm not sure they do anymore. So I was there 5 years ago, or 6 years maybe. And the ones that we were, so in Rajasthan, the elephants were kind of tourist elephants. They kind of do tours and things like that. They weren't used for logging. And they were the last working elephants in India, from what I remember. As in, what they've done is they no longer are breeding or sort of captivating any elephants for work, but they will allow these ones to essentially work until retirement. But there's a big push. Obviously, there was we went out with the elephant vet a couple of times to go and do inspections, basically treat some kind of common ailments in elephants. And so yeah, it was interesting to see that, because obviously I mean it's always sort of got that kind of association with India, you know. People think, oh, working elephants and stuff like that, but it's really great that they've now actually been able to kind of reach the stage that they're at.
Right. So did you said that you also worked in Thailand? So did you come across the working elephants in Thailand? Because that's one of the...
Yes, so I didn't, but I know in the north, I think towards like Chiang Mai, I think they've certainly got elephant sanctuaries and things up there. But I was working.
They got some very good ones there. We saw one called Elephant Hills a few years back.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'd love to go out and kind of see these sanctuaries and things, you know. But yeah, no, I was working. It predominantly dogs and cats on the island I worked with.
Whereabouts in Thailand were you?
So Koh Lanta.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereabouts is that? So I've been to Thailand, but my sense of geography is awful.
So it's near Krabi. Yeah. So kind of
down,
like 2/3 of the way down, maybe.
Down to the right, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So how long were you there for then, Chris?
Just a month, and then kind of travelled onwards after that. But India spent quite a bit longer there. I was there for about 3 months total.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Any plans to go back? Sorry, Julian. Any plans to go back?
Oh, I've been wanting to go back to India for a while, and I don't know. I'm studying quite a lot at the moment, and quite happy with kind of work situation things. So maybe not yet, but
Mm-hmm.
at some point in the future, I'd love to.
What are you studying for?
I've got, it's in, I'm going to look at the calendar. It's in like 6 weeks. I've got an internal medicine exam.
Okay.
So I did my CERT AVP.
Yeah, congratulations. Advanced
Thank you.
Veterinary Practice, Certificate of Advanced Veterinary
yes.
Practice. Well done.
Congratulations, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Impostor Syndrome, I just feel I don't deserve it, you know, but so yeah, I did that and finished it through Liverpool Uni about a year and a half ago. But you can essentially then do the synoptic exam, which makes it a designated certificate. So that's what I'm currently studying for. But yeah, I think it's a similar setup to this, where I'm on a Zoom call actually with some specialists, and they quiz me on some cases.
Fantastic. So what aspect of internal medicine do you really like?
It's the detective work. That's what I just find that I enjoy like surgery. I enjoy lots of other aspects of small animal practice, but it's the detective work bit I love. That you're kind of presented with one thing, you know, and then you take a bit of information from here, and then you quiz the client, you get some more information and stuff, and then kind of sort of gradually building that together. And I mean, it can be sometimes really unsatisfying, but it can be really, really satisfying when it all comes together.
Cool.
There's a huge amount of communication involved, isn't there, in internal medicine? Because you're taking the owners on a journey with you that isn't always straight and isn't always clear cut.
Yeah, I certainly think so. I mean, obviously, I mean, with surgery, I guess it's sometimes more a bit like, here's going to be your quick answer, you know.
That's why I like surgery. It's in one day, out the next. It's fine.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, it's you've got a problem, you're going to sort it, you know. And I find that really satisfying as well. And I think I mean, there's certainly a lot of communication needed about that with possible complications and stuff. But I guess with the internal medicine thing, you kind of have to get owners on board to keep coming back and make sure they know the importance of, well, why do we need to check this blood test in 3 weeks' time? Why do we need to do this additional test on this sample? Why have you not got an answer from me? And I think that's ultimately the kind of explaining to clients that the medical process is not do X, Y, and Z tests and it gives you a straight answer. It's starting with a list of 100,000 possibilities and scoring them out one by one.
So every day is still a school day for you then, Chris?
100%, yeah.
Excellent.
But I think that's kind of the joy of our profession, you know, isn't it? You've got like literally just 2 weeks ago, I had so I've got a pet tortoise that he was brought into work as a stray.
Yes.
So I've now become someone found him in their garden.
Feral tortoise running around central London.
It's what London's like, apparently.
One of our tortoises was brought in as a stray, and no one ever claimed him.
It's apparently a really common thing, and only when we were trying to find the owner did we find these massive databases of lost and found tortoises. Anyway, so I've basically become nominated as the practice's tortoise vet, as you do. So, and I had one brought in just the other week where he hadn't been eating very well. It wasn't associated with hibernation, and we did an X-ray, and he had 6 or 7 sort of significant sized stones in him, in his gastrointestinal tract, and she did say that he does bite at the stones and things. Do you two know this about how you get them out of a tortoise?
Okay, I do, but please do
educate me.
There's a really great. If you ever want a good laugh, there's a really lovely written case report on a tortoise that had a similar issue, where they used. I'm trying to think of what their wording was. I think it might have been a vibrating self-pleasure device, is what they referred to it in the paper as. And they strapped it to his plastrons underneath the tortoise, and they did this vibration therapy. It's legitimate if you call it a therapy. They did it like twice
a rampant rabbit for stagnant tortoise.
Well, the best thing about it was, do you know when you read a paper and it's got a product, you have to state the product's name afterwards. And this one, amazingly, was called Rocks Off, and it's genuinely. You can't write that. It's just perfect.
I know. I've read the article. You must read, listeners out there. You must read it.
If something's going to get you into reading journals, it'll be this one. I promise you.
It's an exercise in the most cautious writing I've ever seen, because whatever they did, they could not sexualize it.
Yeah.
They had to just give the facts, as lurid as it may be. Yeah. How on earth did they decide? That's the thing. They don't really give any history to it, do they? It has long been noticed that. No.
They did mention that. I think they would call it the tradition, or a traditional but unconventional method of putting the tortoise in a car and driving over
the bumpy tractor ride.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. A bumpy ride was simulated by using.
And special thanks to Samantha.
We did discuss at work whether we'd have a kind of like an honesty box and someone could just leave something in there for the tortoise.
Okay, guys, look, I've got another tortoise that eating stones. Where is it? Come on. Who's got it? No batteries. Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah. But to me, that's kind of the joy of general practice. I mean, if you, no offense to any specialist, but you're not going to get thrown that curveball on a daily basis, are you? So, every day really is a school day when you.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got it here in the tortoise news. Rocks off to get your rocks out. It's clear. It's written there. It's a one-line headline. Yeah.
I only found out that. Was it last year? 2 years ago, I had a tortoise that had eaten some stones, and one was clearly blocking the guts. And so I did a plastrotomy, and so cut a little hinged hole in a plastron and removed the stones, about 4 or 5, sutured the guts, wired and fiberglassed the plastron. Tortoise made a good recovery. Chatting to a reptile expert afterwards, and he said, "You should have got a rampant rabbit from Anne Summers." And you said, "What? What?" He gave me his answer.
I've been talking to your tortoises, and they've been discussing this at length. And he's going to forget getting the rocks because he hasn't got a vibrator to use.
Yeah.
If you get stones, he's going to cut you open.
Absolutely, no fun to be had here, they say.
Yeah, you've got to go and see Chris. Chris will sort it out.
Well, it was an interesting conversation to have. A very she's a lovely client. She's quite well to do, and I just thought, because I had started the consult by saying, "Look, I'm not a reptile specialist," and here's me now calling her saying, "Can you strap a dildo to your tortoise?" I mean, it took some, like you said with the paper, it took some cautious wording to.
It really is an exercise in good English. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
I tell you what, Chris, you've got me in the mood for learning right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you come across? We've got a section on the show called 60-second CPD. Have you come across this?
I am aware of it.
You are aware of it?
Year since I agreed to do this.
It's a shame, really, because you could have just done a 60-second CPD on how to clear the stones out of your tortoise, couldn't you?
Can we just put that through as my one?
No, because I wasn't timing it, you see.
What a shame. What a shame.
I've got my timer here. So are you up for a 60-second CPD then, Chris?
I am indeed.
Yeah? What are you going to talk about?
So I'm going to talk about the problem with resilience.
The problem with resilience.
Yeah,
okay.
In line with kind of some of the topics we're discussing about.
I was going to say that sort of fits in line with quite a bit of the stuff that we've been discussing this evening. So that's really good. Okay, all right. Let me key this up for you then. So
I get Chris, one take, right?
Yeah, one take against the clock. You'll see the timer up here.
Okay.
So you can work through there. So, Dr. Chris Wilson. 1 minute, 60-second CPD on resilience, starting now.
So in recent years, there has been a noticeable push in the veterinary industry to promote resilience in individuals. It's very much a well-intentioned process to increase staff retention, mental health, etc. And there's no doubt we need to be emotionally resilient at times. I mean, we do deal with the full spectrum of human emotion, often at its most raw. However, there is a problem in resilience. So in encouraging it, we shift the focus onto the individual and make their vulnerability the problem, when ultimately it's the system that is the problem. And also in becoming resilient, we become more tolerant of adversity. So we put up with long hours, rude clients, insensitive management, poor pay, etc. And toxic positivity is also given the opportunity to sneak in there as well. Rather, what we need to be doing is nurturing workplaces that don't require us to be so resilient in the first place. And focusing on ways we can change the industry to protect our vulnerabilities. Basically, as a profession, we need to feel, not grow hardened, and that's a minute.
Very good.
Well done.
That's quite tough with the pressure.
It is, isn't it?
You did brilliantly. You did very, very well. So I guess what it all boils down to is if you really need to use your resilience, then actually there's something wrong with the process. There's something wrong with the system.
Yeah. And I'm not criticizing the fact that I do think we need some resilience in our profession. I do believe that.
Of course.
We deal with difficult emotional things that, no matter how you deal with them, are still emotional things to deal with. But I think my concern is there's this kind of sort of push to select individuals who are resilient to get into vet school and to become vets and work at your practice and everything. And it's like, at what point do we take a step back and say, why do they need to be resilient? Like we're a caring profession, you know. We should be exposing our vulnerabilities and be open to talking about them rather than kind of becoming hardened and putting up with everything that we do, you know. So
because we do. There is a real culture, isn't there, of wow, we made it through that day, great.
Yeah.
But actually, if every day is a we made it through that day, then there's something wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just as guilty of that. This is at times as well, you know. But there's this kind of, we take a slight pride, like a sick kind of pride in like how difficult our job is, you know. And it's odd when you reflect on that. I don't think that's right, you know.
It's interesting.
Do you have a lunch break every day?
Do
you have a tea break? Do you have a coffee break?
I am lucky to work with very good colleagues that try and encourage that we get breaks. And I'm very fortunate, but we've got a fantastic team where I work, and we look out for each other. And I think that's really important. And yeah, sometimes
hugely.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Because I only recently came across this working for the NHS. Where
Mike and I were both vaccinators.
Almost regimentedly, you know, despite the fact you've got a whole line of patients that you felt you had to see, you were told, off you go. Half an hour. Don't want to see you back. We'll cope. You go. You're having your break. And you sort of go, but I can just. Yeah, but I could just. And we've got and off you go. And it was quite regimented in that, and I've not come across it before.
Really nice, no.
Yeah, it was quite shocking.
In our profession, and Mike isn't a vet, but Mike's business relies on him being at the other end of the line for vets to phone him. And so, I don't know, do you take lunch breaks, Mike? No. Do we? Really. No, because that's the job we do. Why shouldn't we?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's why do we accept that as the norm? And therefore, then you've got individuals who maybe are struggling or not coping, and they're the problem. It shouldn't be like that. It should be about the systems. The systems. I don't want to say broken, because I love our industry.
I don't think it's broken. I think it's just looking at the paradigm in a different way. And it's overcoming. If I sometimes. Beautiful sunny day, I've got a team that can look after stuff. I don't need to be there. And the worst case scenario is I can take my mobile phone and I can go for a walk in the woods at the back of the house with the dog. Why do I feel guilty? Why do I feel guilty for doing that?
That's the true imposter syndrome, isn't it? I'm having a break and I shouldn't.
Really.
I'm upstairs having a cup of coffee, and they're downstairs dealing with Mrs. Biggins' little dog, because actually I should be down there doing that. And I don't think people realise that actually, as vets and ancillaries, we work stupid hours and rarely get a break.
Yeah.
And yet we're expected to look fresh-faced. Well, was the present company accepted, but we were expected to look fresh-faced and intelligent and on the ball with every case. How can we do that for a 12-hour day? It's difficult, isn't it?
Hang on. So Chris is obviously the fresh-faced.
Well, I say we. Yeah, I know. I sort of thought it was, fresh-faced in terms of him, not us.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've just got good light here. That's all it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
a good light and 20 years on us.
And the rest. and the rest.
I think Chris, you've given an amazing presentation on resilience. That was fantastic, CPD, and I think that's deserving of a certificate.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And by pure coincidence, I happen to have a CPD certificate.
Oh wow!
With me, and it says there we go. It says Certificate of Resilience. This proves that if you can put up with us, then you must be resilient. Tar very muchly.
True resilient.
And so what have we got? We got a rainbow. There we go. I thought we needed a rainbow.
Excellent.
Good stuff.
We got a tortoise. I was hoping you'd bring the tortoise in at the last minute. And we got a tortoise's willy. Now, the reason for that is I do a bit of tortoise work, and this was my own tortoise that developed persistent priapism, and I had to actually amputate his willy.
Oh.
And he looks at me balefully now. Have you ever seen a tortoise look balefully? And you know what I'm talking about. But
not only does he not get to play with his vibrator, he hasn't got a willy.
He doesn't. It would do nothing to him now. The rocks on nothing. He'll be eating his cucumber, and he'll suddenly stop and he'll look at me and go,
"Bastard!" And
I'll know.
They have a surprising range of emotions when they look at you.
They really do. They really do. So what else do we have? So here we go. This is a picture of a cow.
Highland coo.
That's a Highland coo.
Oh no, it's not. It's not.
Oh, is it?
It looks a bit like it.
Oh no, sorry. Take that back.
Oh no, it's not.
It's a strange. No, I think it's an Ethiopian longhorn.
Okay. But more akin to the style that you'd see in India, I presume.
Absolutely, yeah. So I put that in just to show what happened. Now, here's me swimming. So I thought you'd bring up swimming, or I thought we'd bring up swimming. And this, do you remember, Mike, a few months back, I spoke about the time I was swimming in the sea in Greece, and I acquired a friend.
Yes.
And this guy appeared from nowhere, and swam with me for pretty much the whole day, and sort of stuck with us. I couldn't speak any Greek. I speak a bit now, but not enough to be able to understand what on earth he was saying. But he became my friend for the day, and we actually had him for lunch, a little barbecue and picnic on the beach. Had him for lunch. He joined us.
You rewarded your friend by eating.
We ate. No. Sorry, he joined us for lunch.
Oh right.
When I say we had him for lunch, we didn't eat him.
Okay.
But there we go. So that was my swimming buddy for the day. And finally, there's an olive tree, and this was to show resilience. Now, I don't know if you can make out, this olive tree has been split in two by someone shoving a fridge into the fork of the tree. And presumably at one stage or another, someone had taken their fridge whilst picking olives, a little sort of portable fridge, put it in there with some beers or something, and then just left it there. And years on, the olive tree, the trunk has split into two, and there's this fridge in the middle. And I thought, if you were to look at resilience, well, that must be resilience, mustn't it? Keeping on with someone shoved a fridge in your stomach. There may be a metaphor there somewhere. Look nice, look good.
Work on it.
But basically, here, Chris, is your CPD certificate. And anyone who's put up with us for the last hour, of resilience. And thank you very much for teaching us on that.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. It's been amazing having you here, and I suppose all it leaves for us to say is that actually I'm gonna change this around. Let's look at it from a different perspective. Don't tell your friends about Veterinary Ramblings. Don't click like and share.
Mike, what are you doing?
Don't send us ideas for people you'd like us to talk to and what you'd like us to talk about. You keep it to yourself. It's our secret.
Absolutely. Don't let anyone else in it. Go on.
Yeah, don't let anybody else in it.
Only us.
Only us.
The
Absolutely.
first rule of Veterinary Ramblings is you don't talk about it.
Yeah, first of all, I like that. I like that. Chris Wilson, thank you very, very much indeed for sharing an insight into your life.
Thank you.
May
so
your
much
dog
for
go
having
with
me.
you.
Thank you. May your dog go with you. We're privileged to have met you, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant.
Cheers.
Thank you, Chris.